Okay, part two of chapter three. We're here talking about how the government was framed in the Electoral College, which is what we're going to jump into now. So we're back to the whiteboard. We went through these. We're now at the Electoral College. Now here's where real, the real problem seems to be with liberals today. All of a sudden, the Electoral College was created. Again, Madison had a lot to do with this. Why he's considered the father of our country, along with many others. He didn't invent all these ideas, but it coalesced in his mind, and he had a strong voice and he was well spoken. Short guy like me, gotta love it. Madison said basically that in order for elections to be fair, he had to deal with factions. Now, I wrote about this in Facebook, and it probably went right over some people's heads. Factions were deadly and a big problem. What is a faction? Faction is a group of like-minded people who sees a certain amount of power and sway within any given group or government or what have you, and they tend to grow, they tend to get more powerful, and they are not easily defeated. The big fear was that if factions were allowed to exist without being checks and balances, that they would never lose an election. What did this mean? It meant that in the most populated areas of the existing United States at the time, the 13 states, New York, Philadelphia, maybe Boston, what have you. If there were any factions that, let's say, were Federalist, they would never lose an election, because if it was simply based on population, meaning one vote, one person, one vote, then the majority would win every time. And all the groups that had a minority belief, even if it was just 49%, would never be heard from. They'd never have a chance to have a representative represent them in government. They would never have a chance to have their voices heard. They would be ignored election after election after election. And the same group, the same thinking, would permeate and prevail all elections, all the time. And this could not happen, because if a large minority was ignored over time, then over time, certain states that represented those minorities might secede. They might say, this isn't united at all. There's nothing united about it. It's completely unfair. So to avoid the problems of factions, they created the Electoral College, which means that it basically acknowledged that we are not a true democracy. And that is where the liberals go astray. See, because they don't understand the nature of our country and what type of government we have, they're all caught up in this nice politically correct term, democracy. They love the word. They think they're democratic. Of course, they call their party the Democrat Party, but they're anything but democratic. They are stubborn. They are anything but fair. In the big picture, we'll get into what the true nature of liberals are today later on, but they're not democratic. That's why I don't call it the Democratic Party. I call it the Democrat Party, because that's more accurate. But Democrats today do not understand that we do not live in a democracy, not a true one. It might be a type of democracy, big overarching government style, that has a lot of different types of government styles under that umbrella, but it's not a true democracy. It's not one for one. It's representative. What does that mean? The Electoral College uses representatives, electors, to represent groups of people, both the minority and the majority. And in the states have to present, each individual state has to present a minority of thinking. Now a majority of thinking, and that majority of votes going towards one candidate in one state, the majority in another state might go to another candidate. And they're assigned, again by population, the number of electors that they can have. So that the minority states that have less population and might be, might have less people believing in a certain idea or whatever, a platform, they're going to be represented if at least within the state they can get a majority. And when all these things are calculated, they had to hit a certain number of electors to win the presidency. Now that created more fairness. That allowed all the people in the smaller populated states to feel like they were engaged in the process, that they had a say, that they had a means to affect change for themselves and their families and their communities. Now the Democrats like to say that only one vote will equal having a say, like my vote doesn't count kind of stuff. Well, actually, just the opposite is true. If we were in a true democracy and had one vote, one say, and one person, one vote, then a large group of people, the minority, would have literally no say because of factions. They would literally have no reason to vote at all, and they would stop voting. They're really the ones that would suffer in my vote doesn't count discussions. They're the ones that vote would not count. Only in an electoral college representative style of election does everyone's vote or most people's vote count. More people's votes count this way. It is more fair. To destroy that idea would grind everything to a halt. Half the country would stop voting because of California, New York, Chicago, etc. would, where all the blue counties are and all the blue states after this recent election. There was 90% of it was red, 10% of it was blue, and the blue people would be in charge every time. Every single time. Now, of course, if you're a liberal who doesn't give a crap about things like that, they love it. They think that's perfect. That would be great for them. It's very selfish. But for most Americans who want to follow who understand the reasoning of the Electoral College, that would not be fair. That would not be right. And the Electoral College is the only way to maintain that fairness and the engagement of people. Look how many people voted this time. When it really mattered, they came out, and nobody, not a lot of people stayed home. Very important to have a engaged community. A friend of mine who didn't like all the back and forth, the mudslinging between people. I told him, I wouldn't be so worried about the mudslinging amongst citizens. It's when they stop mudslinging. That's when you have to worry. Passion is never a bad thing. Well, rarely a bad thing. You can go overboard, of course. Moderation in all things, another conservative tenet. You can go crazy with passion too, But apathy is the death of a nation, not passion. So, what does all this stuff mean? What does it mean? It means we don't have a true democracy. We have a republic, a representative constitutional republic. Representative because we send representatives, proxies, to do our bidding in government. We elect them by representative, and they are our representatives. The politicians we send are our representatives. Constitutional because we have a constitution. A lot of countries do not. And republic. Not a true democracy. Now, why is this important? What makes this different? This is the part where I'm very passionate. Okay, the left has a big problem with our country, as evidenced by the fact that they seem to attack it constantly. Depending on the issue, depending on their passion of the subject, will depend on the degree to which they seem to be unhinged and wanting some kind of change. Now, they ignore all the stuff that we just showed on the whiteboard when it suits them. And make no mistake, liberalism is agenda-driven. Period. Agenda, ideology trumps all. It trumps race, religion, party, everything. Everything is subservient to ideology and agenda, if you're a liberal. Liberal being the radical, extreme side of the Democrat Party, which, of course, has basically taken over the Democrat Party. There are no more moderates left. They're not allowed. You know, when Zell Miller wanted to be a moderate in the Democrat Party, they ostracized him. When Joseph Lieberman was more moderate, more right-wing, or in that direction anyway, when it came to foreign policy, he had to leave the Democrat Party and become an independent. They're not tolerant, folks. They're not tolerant. Okay? It's their way or the highway. And the people who are deciding what the highway is, what their way is the radical left, the liberals. They have used to be a small part, far left side of the Democrat Party, and they've just grown and enveloped the entire thing. The funny thing is, they're so big now. The liberals are such a large part of the Democrat Party that, from their perspective, anything to the right, even occupying the middle, the moderate section of the political spectrum, is radical to them, is extreme right-wing to them. They are so out of touch. They are so, there's so many of them. Mainstream media, and the politicians, that they can't even see past their own nose that there is a moderate group, and that what was used to be considered just plain old everyday Republicans are not so far to the right today as, they're not further to the right today than they used to be. It's just that they've moved so far to the left, the distance has grown. They're still right here. Me, conservative, right here. I haven't moved. They've just gone further to the left, so the distance is greater. So they're sitting over here looking at me, hi, and to me, I'm so far over to the right from them now, I look extreme. Now, why do I say I haven't moved? Because I'm still following the Constitution as written. I'm not trying to change it. I'm still following the laws. I'm still following the meaning, the reason, the ideals behind the creation of the country. I'm not changing. I'm not trying to protest everything. I'm not trying to do away with an electoral college because I lost an election. I'm not trying to circumvent the Constitution through executive orders that are not part of the plenary power of the executive branch of the Constitution of the government. I'm not trying to, undermine, screw up the country just to suit my own needs. I'm right here, right where I've always been. An originalist, constitutionalist American. The left is going that way, and they're trying to drag the whole country with them. And they've been doing that for about 50, 60 years. the modern day liberals have been successful in this regard. We'll get into that later. But what I really want to talk about in our third and final segment is what all this stuff that we're talking about, how the government's created and what the mindset of our founders were and why that makes America exceptional and special. So we'll do that on the next and last part.